Hey guys, Hailey, Lain, aka Key Black here with another episode of Off the Cuff. Once again, I have Jess and Monpian here with me.
Hello. Hey.
And I wanted to talk a little bit more, kind of following up on the last two episodes about the Rise of Balxiros. It's probably more at this point because I haven't edited them yet. But I wanted to follow up on the last couple episodes about the Rise of Balxiros with a specific focus on Varris's character, who... I'm just going to preface all of this with I have a massive crush on Varris. I have never really, I had never encountered a character like him in media up until that point. And, since then you've shown me a couple more examples of the sort of, villain turned hero character in other stories, but still not many who have the same sort of personality traits that he does. And I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about the development of his character from when we met him in the campaign to how he ended up at the end of Dead Man.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to hear you have a crush on him because I designed him.
He's hot!
I designed him to be that way.
He's very hot!
But yeah, so Varris Toll, we talked a little bit about this in some of the other Off the Cuffs. He is the wealthy son of a very important person in the world that I developed for Rise of Balxiros, and he has the same problem many people in his position do, which is they think their father is evil. They think they're a terrible person who is doing horrible things in the world, and they're not going to be like them. I'll never turn into him. I will do it right. And the first thing he does is join a death cult, which is murdering, peasants in the countryside. So Varris Toll started off as this kind of, little silly nod to Jesse and James, Team Rocket, something that I hope that my players could have fun with. Like, oh my gosh, this is just like, my Japanese animes. And as the group got more sincere and the story developed onward, I found myself going, this might be interesting because he dies. There's a huge battle where the team fights him head on for the first time, where it's not, he and Vin working from the shadows to get one over on these guys, and they managed to kill him. And it was a pretty spectacular fight. And as I was, going over what had happened in that day's session and planning what would happen on the next one, I found myself kind of thinking, this he's been in the campaign since episode 1, since their very first encounter, level 1, Mark 1, Mod 1. And it just started as a funny thought, God, wouldn't it be hilarious if he came back?
Wait.
But yeah, and that started as the crew was walking down the road, and I was like, roll perception, and after a couple of rolls, as they got closer and closer, I was like, you recognize that shambling hobo on the road. You killed him last night. He basically was brought back to life, and I wrote him as a very specific situation of how an undead is formed. Because, we've all got the stories about zombies and ghosts and whites and things like that. And for him, he's a revenant, and I think D&D literally has revenants, and they describe them in a very similar fashion. But he is a kind of undead who was brought back because a fundamental aspect of the human condition was not met before he died, and he kind of died in the throes of realizing it, but not fully. And that was when you guys killed him. He thought that he was in love with Vinless Fairchild, his partner. And at the very end, he kind of did have that realization, he was actually in love with her, even though he was absolutely an incel. He's doing things to impress the ladies. Yep. Simp,
massive simp.
Very insecure, but at the very end, as he faced his mortality, he realized he really did love her, and that's what brought him back. And that tie made him able to always sense exactly the direction where she was, and even a little bit of how far away she was. So I figure, this will be fun. We'll see how the party likes it. And it's also giving them a plot thread. Hey, are you tired of getting dropped on by this master assassin? Well, now you can turn the tables on her and turn the hunter into the hunted.
Yeah, because I remember when we encountered him, it was sort of, we had that wait, you? And then very shortly after, these thugs appeared after Varris for spell components.
Yeah, basically, in the world of magic that I've imagined, some people can inherently cast spells, and others need to kind of cheat a little bit. They need to use things to make potions, tinctures, enhance their abilities, and a very, very rare type of undead who has a spiritual connection to humanity would be a very powerful thing to use in tinctures and potions.
Yep.
So the way I kind of like led the party into, okay, you have a choice. You can either work with Varris or let him, just like, you don't have to see him again because these guys really want to capture him and take him away. It was basically, a couple of thugs for hire, a half-orc, bruiser, a bunch of, rando, thieves and hitmen style kind of guys, and then a mage who was not your typical mage. He's basically a dropout from the magic college in this world, the Monothian Sorcerers Guild, and he knew full well what he was capable of, and all he cared about was gold. So between that whole encounter, it was the beginning of a fun journey for Varris, because for the first time he was on the receiving end of what he'd been doing to so many other people, using his powers and his status and his abilities as a way to dominate and coerce and just get whatever he wanted, regardless of what that meant for the people that he was accosting.
It was interesting having to cooperate with him as well, because our party at the time was not entirely lawful goods, let's say. And so one of the...
I'm chaotic neutral.
So one of the big points in favor of working with him was the fact that he could hone in on Vin's location, which was a strategic advantage, obviously, but we ended up having this very interesting, awkward, but more and more sincere interaction with Varris's character over the course of trekking from Daggerfjord all the way to the Dead City, which was our next, ultimate destination where Vin was headed as well. We of course had the Chekhov's gun of his being valuable spell components go off with Resassel and Margaret Stonetree. Yep. Which was the swamp druidess.
Yeah, to not get too in the weeds here, our swamp joke. Basically, I wanted a character that was a contrast to our resident Merlin, of Disney's Sword in the Stone, which was Falstead Crimplewim, and so I unabashedly just made Mad Madam Mim,
of course,
and called her Resassel Margaret Stonetree, and I basically had her present the party with a fun little dichotomy. They had a great time with her, they got a lot of useful stuff out of her, and she helped them a lot, and then she turned around and revealed that she wanted to kind of enact a fate worse than death on Varris. And I was curious to see what the party would do. And it was very nice to see that the party, really rallied around Varris, and after that pretty crazy fight, there was a moment where Varris is now looking at that. They're just outside the Dead City. There are undead kind of in the distance, and it's like the moonlight's like showing these shambling figures, probably about 1.5 miles like off. And he's realizing that what his friends just saved him from, he would have absolutely done to them without a second thought in his past life. So I think the line was something like, "If that were me, I would have, dang it,
I would have taken that bargain."
Yes, like I would have taken that bargain without a second thought. And that really hit hard. And it enabled what happened next, which was you guys went into the Dead City, and this was the big showdown. This was, okay, you guys have been tracking this assassin for game terms, however long, but in real life, this campaign had been going on for over a year. And this was the big re-meetup, the big showdown, so to speak. And it was a pretty fantastic moment where, thanks to everything that you players had done, I was looking at Varris's character from a very logical perspective and going, man, he's going to realize that he does not love her anymore. And he's going to realize that he actually wants revenge on her, because love, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And that means love and hate are the same thing. So when Vin showed up and Varris was there to confront her in the Temple of Huril, I think it was, I basically rolled a couple of die because I had a couple of branching pathways with exactly how it would go, and he ends up trying to kill her. And then from then on, yes, he's part of the crew, but now he has kind of the opposite goal that the rest of the crew had. He wanted to kill her. And the crew, who has been doing fantastic, good things, realized, no. That's not our place. Like, yes, she's done horrible things, but we're not the ones to judge. We need to stop her. We need to find out information from her, but we are not going that extra step and letting you kill her. And
that was a really cool moment. I specifically remember putting the music and the editing for that scene when our party had basically defeated Vin for the moment. I think Valir put her to sleep, and Varris wanted to kill her. It was Berkeley, I think, who basically said, Varris, don't kill her. And there was kind of this back and forth for a while. I was rolling really, really low on persuasion. Varris almost turned on the party at that point. There was a crackle of magic that he was summoning, I remember.
Yeah, this actually ties into, Monpian, I think this was one of the things that we had a lot of fun discussing before the party did it, and it was one of the possibilities was if they didn't convince Varris to let Vin live, Varris would attack the party.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, are they gonna do it?
Yeah. Oh.
What was it? Roll 3, 2.
And I think I showed you the stats, like, what it would take to actually take him down, and you were like, ooh.
That was fun. I really super enjoyed getting the behind the scenes and then seeing how, it played out in the campaign. It's very good.
Yep, but long story short, they did convince him not to kill Vin, so they didn't have to kill him.
Darn.
Gosh darn. But yeah, shortly after that, though, after confronting Vin, they didn't really get much time to use what they learned from her, because she had an inherent way to contact her boss, the big bad of the entire thing, which was not technically Balxiros. Balxiros has been dead for hundreds of years, but of course, spoilers. There was a very powerful mage named Kinnear, Thomas Kinnear, and he was impersonating Balxiros, and he ran this cult using the cult of personality born of this extremely charismatic sorcerer from however long ago. And basically, it was a fantastic showdown. It was the big showdown. Like, okay, here we go. Could be a party wipe. Could be, the fight to end all fights. Who knows what's going to happen? And I had Varris very logically assess the situation and realize the party was gonna get wiped. So he grabs Vin as a hostage and threatens Balxiros. He goes, please give me the justification, as he really wants to kill her, but he's just holding back, because at that point it wasn't so much not killing Vin was the right thing. It was, if he kills Vin, his friends can't escape. And I mean, you
I remember
like that
this
scene.
I like this scene. It was he threatens to kill Vin, takes her as hostage, and then whispers to the party, Balxiros won't risk losing his most valuable
his
assistant.
most trusted associate.
That's it. You have to get out of here now, basically. And the party was like, we don't like this situation. We don't want to leave you, but I mean, this is a really heroic thing and noble thing for you to do, to give us the chance to go.
And then out of character, you guys knew you were dead.
Of course. And so the party started to head towards the door, but then I was like, Berkeley wouldn't. He can't. And I think it was Zephyr acted first. I said something like, Berkeley doesn't like this, and then Nate's character Zephyr goes, I think we can all make it, and he throws like was it a frostbolt?
No, this is totally out of order. Basically, you just went, I grab her.
I'm trying to remember the order of things.
it was quite literally, you were just like, I grab it, and Zephyr, after you chose to do that, and everyone also kind of like, you went with it, I was like, okay, this is a surprise round. because I was not expecting that. And I think you said Berkeley grabs him on the arm and goes, run! And then he runs the opposite way.
Throws down a Spirit Guardians.
Yeah, he threw down the Spirit Guardians. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to count this as a surprise round. And I had Varris cast a spell I hadn't had him cast before because he hadn't needed to. And it was Wall of Flame, which was great because it was opaque. It blocks vision. It's actually a fantastic escape spell. And the army that Balxiros had were mostly grunts who, if they touched this wall, would be incinerated.
Yep.
So, game terms, please. But yeah, that ended up being a very pleasant surprise for me because I did not expect that. I was fully expecting either leave him or fight to the death. And then when my players surprised me, I had a lot of fun ad-libbing a little bit and again, acting out what the character would do. It's like, okay, well, let's see. Varris was prepared to sacrifice himself for these people who kind of really did give him a real second chance because being an undead really isn't a second chance. It's more like refusing to move on. And what awaited him afterwards before all the character development was not good. Basically eternal purgatory or hell.
And will I dream in the abyss that awaits?
Yeah, will I dream in the abyss that awaits was the line. And basically it was that one of those moments is why I loved DMing this campaign and why I really did want to do more after it ended. But you got to respect your players, and if you don't have the time to put together a story, you do not commit to another story. But Varris, very shortly after that, it was a bittersweet moment because while they all escaped, and everyone's freaking out, like, what are we gonna do? We're being pursued by literally the named bad guy of the campaign, his trusty assassin who's been hunting us since the first session, an army of gnolls, a number of drakens, like we're dead.
And all the zombies.
And at this point I had a lot of fun because this is the stuff I love to write in because it never happens in movies. And I want this stuff to happen. So basically they ran back to the newly hallowed Cathedral of Call from an earlier session. And as they're freaking out, going, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay here and fight? Are we going to take the horses and run? What are our options here? This was when I decided to reward the party for so many sessions ago helping out the orcs. And before they even had a chance to come out, it's like the sound of battle fills the cathedral. And as you open the doors, there is a massive army-sized melee of gnolls, undead, draken, and orcs. And you see Lokgra in the center of the battle throwing bodily gnolls to and fro. And everyone was like, oh! But yeah, that was a fantastic, the up before the down, because basically I knew that Varris couldn't last. He had a purpose, and the purpose was close the loop on the story with Vin, and also, what are you gonna do with an undead? You can't quite give the Pinocchio ending here. He's not a child. So I had all these different things that could happen where if he kills Vin, of course he dies for real, because the only thing that brought him back was his connection to Vin. So if he kills Vin, he's dead. If someone else were to destroy him, then that would also be the end of it, because now we're dealing with a number of very powerful people who do not want him working for the other side. Balxiros could have easily killed him. Nicholas could have easily killed him. Vin could have easily killed him. So it was all these different options, like, all right, how's this going to work out? But as the fight went on, and it became clear that not only were the orcs winning, because by the way, I didn't like pre-plan them to win. I was rolling every round to see how everyone was doing. Otherwise, it's not really a story.
Right.
You know, if I just decide what everything's gonna, you know, what's gonna happen, it's not really fun for you guys. And as it was becoming clear that Balxiros' army was getting defeated, the orcs that you basically befriended were kicking butt, and even when Balxiros took over Gra for a temporary amount of time, you guys were able to work and free him from that.
Yeah,
and
next turn.
Then it was like, okay, if Balxiros is as smart as I've been inferring that he is, he would realize the writing on the wall and get rid of that which is the biggest danger to him, which is, well, let's see. This guy is able to track my greatest asset, my #1 assassin, who's a fantastic disguise and escape artist, who has also probably got the most connections that I've been using. Wherever she is, they're going to be able to follow. Also, Varris was very powerful. He was, I wrote him as kind of this, a little bit of a deus ex, again, in case you guys ever ended up fighting him, so you could realize what dangerous thing you have had in your midst the whole time. So what Balxiros decided to do, as he realized he had to make a retreat, and he couldn't retrieve the thing he wanted from the party, because you guys had the claw at that time. He's like, I can't get the claw. They've got one of my ex-henchmen who is very dangerous, and they know where my #2 is at all times. Okay, I've got to get rid of him. Can I kill him? No. His whole party is surrounding him, and Balxiros didn't have any way to kind of like, you know, sniper rifle it. That's Vin's job, and Vin was horrifically injured. So he chose to get rid of Vin, which in turn killed Varris. And that was a pretty emotional scene.
Yes, it was. I remember when it happened, the whole party went pretty quiet. I also remember Berkeley said a prayer for him, and I remember you specifically asking, what does Berkeley pray for? And I said he prays for his soul to find peace. And then that came full circle, I think that session or the next session. It was with the, when basically they returned back to the Temple of Call after the big battle.
Oh yeah. That was the same session. Actually.
It was the same session, okay.
So yeah, basically, you know, I wanted to know precisely what Berkeley's character would be praying for, because that also would give me a read on Hailey and how she would be reacting to future things I had planned. Because as a DM, you gotta pay attention to what your character or what your players are doing with their characters, because that's gonna tell you what they like, what they're going to respond to, and what they're probably going to want out of the story in the future. So basically, I closed the loop with Varris, where when they returned to the Hallowed Temple, there was a nice little wrap up with one of the characters that had been tied into the past events. It was Father Bartholomew Shaleward, who was a priest of Call, who they had unfortunately come across the corpse of, and he was trapped in a pretty nasty, you know, monster thing that they ended up having to destroy. His soul was able to find peace because they defeated that creature and rehallowed the cathedral. I also brought back another character who had been killed earlier in the session, Father Silas, who was yet another priest of Call who had been assassinated by this cult. And that all tied into Varris's soul finding peace, which is a nice little visual for everyone. And that also gave me a little room in one of the last sessions we had, where whenever the chips are down and they're fighting Balxiros for real, and it's the huge attack on the city with, you know, we've got ogres, we've got, you know, gnolls, we've got drakens, you know, master sorcerers, and a huge possessed dragon flying around and trying to kill people. And basically our friend Nate, who was playing Zephyr, his character had made good friends with Varris in the game, because Zephyr recognizes, you know, skill recognizes skill, real recognizes real. And when I knew he was out of spell slots, because these guys, I appreciate players who don't metagame. It's like, oh, I gotta save my spell slots for later because surely this can't be the last encounter. It's like, please don't do that. Please just do what your character would do. And when he did, and he sure enough ran out of spell slots, but didn't give up, wasn't getting negative, I basically pulled the Ronin Warriors riff off. And it was like, it's just, you hear a familiar voice like, that come now, that's not the Zephyr I know. And it's like, suddenly you remember 2 spell slots of any level of your choice. And it was kind of one of those, like, it really, Nate loved that. He's like, oh!
Yep. Oh, man. No, it was really fun seeing that kind of character for the first time because again, I had not seen that sort of personality with that sort of character development arc in anything beforehand. You know, shortly after you showed me Ronin Warriors for the first time, I saw the Anubis character. A while after that, I finally watched Dragon Ball Z Kai with you guys, and I finally saw who Vegeta really was.
That's right, boys. Mondo cool.
But even then, neither of those guys were quite the same kind of personality as Varris was. And it wasn't until you guys showed me Pirates of the Caribbean, because I had never seen that before. You guys were just talking about that earlier on Cinema Ficcione. You were giving your analyses of that, and one of the characters in Pirates of the Caribbean who really caught my attention was Commodore Norrington.
Good man.
Yes! Who is very similar in personality to the kind of character that Varris was, although very different alignment. And
same story, different version, but all are true.
This has been a good discussion, and I kind of want to cap it off here. Thank you guys for joining for this one, and
no worries.
Thank you guys as well for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.
Bye!